Sairam, everyone. I offer my most loving pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. I pray to Swami that he gives us all the understanding, that it is Swami who speaks and it is Swami who listens to each one of us. My respects to all the elders, my loving Sairams to all the younger brothers and sisters. Thank you for this opportunity to join all of you. It's so wonderful to be with all of you here this lovely evening. And many congratulations. 48 is not a small number, but let's hope it's not just 48. I wish it goes on. Nothing more beautiful than coming together and thinking and talking about Swami. And it's all the more beautiful if it is among individuals who are like-minded in the sense we kind of understand each other, where we come from when we talk about Swami. So it's always beautiful to do that. As I was introduced, I came to Swami's fold in 1999. And ever since, if there was a question that bothered me, the question bothers me even today. And I do hope that it continues to bother me. And that question is, what is the purpose of this opportunity that Swami has given us? As I always say, we as students have been told this any number of times, that we are fortunate. This is a very grand blessing that Swami has given us. So we all know that. We know that this is a great opportunity. But however much we are told this, however much we keep reminding ourselves of that, I think it cannot be an overstatement. I think we cannot overdo it, because we have no idea, I feel, how grand an opportunity this is. I'm not saying this merely as students of Swami, not merely as someone who has had Swami's darshan, who has had the opportunity to interact with Swami physically, personally, all that apart. To merely know Swami, to merely be aware of Swami, to have Swami as a part and as in the scheme of our life. I think that itself is a huge opportunity, and I cannot marvel, I cannot explain it enough when I think how grand an opportunity it is. I'll start with a very small story I heard. If I am not wrong, I must have heard it from my father, or I would have heard it from one of my seniors. It's not experience related to Swami, it's a story from the Puranas. We all know the story of the little boy Dhruva. For those of you who are familiar with Bhagavatam, you know that he does penance for 5 months. He's shunned away from his family because the problem that he has is his father had 2 queens. And I'm not going into the whole story. But what happens is he does penance for 5 months, and at the end of it, Lord Vishnu grants him a darshan and blesses him with whatever he had asked for, and much, much more than what he asked for. Story goes that sage Narada once goes to Lord Vishnu and asks him that how is it possible that here is this little boy, innocent, probably not very well versed in sadhana and tapas and all that, and nearly 5 months of sitting down and praying, 5 months of sitting down and doing tapas, and you granted him a darshan, you granted him your vision. This seems a bit unfair, given that there are so many tapasvis and great sages and austere people in the Himalayas and in all these kind of inhostile places who are doing penance for so many years, sometimes even hundreds of years. And here is this little boy who did penance for 5 months, and you go and give him darshan. Interesting coming from Narada himself, because Narada is considered to be the guru of Dhruva, because he's the one who initiates him into the mantra, right? Om Namo Vasudevaya. So he asks, what is it? How is it that he got this vision? And Lord Vishnu listens to it and says, yes, Narada, I mean, I can't tell you, how many great sages are there who are doing all kinds of austerities. So then Lord Vishnu starts pointing out to him some sages who are doing, as they call it in our Puranas, Ghor Tapas, right? Very, very difficult ways of doing meditation, and they are, somebody is there and under the blazing sun, somebody is there in a cold mountain, someone is there inside a cave, somebody is underwater, and he shows some 90 odd such sages. At the end of it, he comes to one sage, and this seems to be, the master of all of them. Because as Narada is seeing this vision, he sees that this sage is hanging upside down from a tree whose branch is overlooking a flowing river, and this sage is, suspended upside down there, and he's doing tapas. And in the process of doing this tapas, he has actually passed away. And there are drops of blood that is oozing from his nostrils and his mouth. And these drops of blood fall into that flowing river. And every drop of blood that falls in that river blossoms into a lotus and floats away. And Narada sees the sight. I mean, that's how much his body itself has got purified because of the penance that he has done. Every drop of blood has become so pure that when it falls into that flowing river, it transforms into a blossomed lotus and it flows away. And Narada is even more perplexed. He's saying, but Lord Vishnu, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, Lord, that look at all of these people, and here is this little boy, Dhruva, who meditated for 5 months, and you granted him your vision. Then Lord Vishnu says, oh Narada, these are not any 99 sages that I showed you. These are the 99 past lives of this little boy, Dhruva. That moment when I came to him, that moment when I gave him my darshan, it was the culmination of these many lifetimes of effort. He may not know it, those who see it may not know it, but I know the value of that moment when I went and stood in front of him. I recall another very beautiful episode that Raghunath Sharma sir had once narrated. He was telling that he was in the interview room with Swami, and I think this was the time when he was being inducted as a teacher. He was at Swami's lotus feet, he was doing Padaseva, and in a moment he was so overwhelmed by that opportunity of sitting at Swami's feet. So he looked at Swami and he said, Swami, Janma Janmantara Sukrutam idi. Inni Janmala Adrishtamo, right? Something like that. He remarked, saying that Swami, lifetimes yearning and pining has probably got me this opportunity to sit at your feet. When he made that remark, Swami looked at him and Swami said, Inni Janmala Adrishtama. Then Swami said, Janmala Adrishtam Kadra, Janma, 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 Janma. And Swami kept on saying that. And Swami said, Anni Janmala Adrishtamidi. We probably will never be able to understand the value of this moment when we are seated here and we are able to think of Swami. When so much is happening around the world, we are able to sit and have Swami in our mind. We are discussing about Swami. I'm speaking about Swami. You're listening to about Swami. This is not by chance. This one moment probably contains in it any number of lifetimes of yearning, any number of lifetimes of effort, any number of lifetimes of goodness. This moment contains all that, right? As Lord Vishnu said, when I went and stood in front of Dhruva, it was the culmination of those 99 lives of tapas. This is not to say that, oh, we're all great sages in the past. Right? That's not the idea of this. Even if we were, what does it matter really? Past is past. We are right now in front of each other. We are in this moment. That's all matters really. And even if we were great sages, whenever someone comes and tells me this, oh, you all must have been great sages, I say, but we have seen Swami. We have seen the Lord of the universe. Is that any way comparable to being anything else? You could have been even a Maharishi. What does it matter? We've been his student. We have touched his feet. We have looked at his form. We've loved him. Nothing else is really anywhere in comparison to that. Even if someone comes and says that, oh, you're this saint or you're this, that, or what does it matter really? We've seen him. So this moment of knowing Swami, this moment of having Swami in our lives, I still recall the first time when I had the opportunity to travel abroad. I was taking this flight from Bangalore to London. And even as that flight was going past these continents, these many countries, when it flew past the Middle East, the European countries, for the first time, you're seeing so much land, you're seeing so much, the expanse of the earth. And it filled me with so much awe to think how many billions of people are there on this face of this earth. Swami allowed us to know him. How many are there who are born, who live their lives listlessly and pass away? Amidst this multitude, Swami allowed us to live knowing him. He's allowing us to right now think of him. What a great blessing it is. What a great opportunity it is. And now coming back to that question I said, which always is, what is the purpose of this, right? This grand opportunity. This is not any moment. I said this one moment is the culmination of so many lifetimes of effort. But what is the purpose of this? Our crossing paths with that of the avatar. The Lord come in a human form. What purpose does he serve in our life? I know the way I'm putting it, it sounds a bit like how a businessman would look at it. What do I get out of this? But then there should be some purpose to it, isn't it? Anything that we do, we go about our jobs, we put up with our jobs. Sometimes we don't like them, we don't like our bosses. We put up with that because there's some purpose in us going and doing that work. We've labored through so many years of education. I can tell that about myself at least. Not really fond of academics, but we labored through that because we found some purpose in that journey or in that phase of our life. What is the purpose of this awareness of Swami in our life? The only reason why I feel this question is necessary to be asked. One thing is, if there is a purpose, I mean, I'm not saying if, there is a purpose, and it really doesn't matter whether we are aware of it or not. You don't need to know the chemistry behind the medicine that you take. It's going to work anyway. I think in that sense, Swami's presence in our life has a purpose, and that purpose will play out. But the only hope is if we are able to understand, or at least comprehend a little bit of what this purpose is, maybe we can expedite that process. Maybe we can relish the journey a little more. Maybe we can do a little better in making that purpose play out. So for the next few minutes, I just want to speak about a concept that Swami himself has spoken about. This is not the last word on the topic. This is not the last word to the question that I've asked. As I said, this is a question that I pondered about when I came to Swami. I still continue to bother myself with this question. And even as I read through Swami's literature, even as I listen to discourses and talks from others, I try to understand this. What was that role that Swami had to play? And that purpose cannot be mundane. When this opportunity is so supreme, when this opportunity is so divine, the purpose cannot be simple. The purpose cannot be something worldly. It has to be supreme. Swami speaks about this concept from Vedanta. It is there. Some of these Advaitins have also written about it, and Swami has also spoken about it. Swami has written about it in his Vahinis. Swami says that every entity in creation, every being, can be defined by 5 qualities, 5 amshas, as it is referred to as. You probably may be familiar with the words. Well, if you're not, let me introduce them to you. And the 5 qualities are, Swami says, Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Rupa, and Nama. Swami says that these are the 5 amshas of all beings in this creation. Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Rupa, Nama. Rupa and Nama, of course, I think we all know, name and form. The Vedantic verses which introduce these qualities to us, they also tell us another point, that of these 5 qualities, Rupa and Nama pertain to the world, Asti, Bhati, and Priyam are divine qualities. And when Swami explains about this, he very beautifully says, what is this Asti, Bhati, and Priyam? Truly speaking, it is nothing but Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda are the qualities of the Supreme. Swami says Sat means existence, the eternal existence that was always there. Trikala Badhyam Satyam, Swami says, right? That which is Sat was there, is there, will ever be there. Chit is consciousness, knowledge. Ananda is, of course, bliss. So Swami equates this to Asti, Bhati, and Priyam. Swami says Asti is nothing but Sat. We all are. I am, you are, and anything which is an entity, it exists. So Asti is that isness. Bhati, the word literally means effulgence. Swami says Bhati is nothing but Chit, and Priyam is nothing but Ananda. But the problem with us is, though the same Satchitananda is there in each one of us as Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Swami says it is conditioned through this Rupa and Nama. Because we are so fixated with this idea that I am this body, I am Prem, you are so-and-so, I belong to this family, so-and-so is my father, this is my religion, this is my caste, this is my upbringing. These qualities of Asti and Bhati and Priyam are contained and locked up in this Rupa and Nama conditioning. That's why Swami says, because we are Satchit Ananda, we are immortal, but because we mistake our true self to be the body, we seek the immortality of the body instead. That's why when we fall sick, we want to take some medicine, we want to take care of ourselves. We are all running around looking for vaccines because there is this innate knowledge that we are eternal, but along with that is this Rupa Nama conditioning. We think that this body should become eternal, or at least live for as long as we can keep it. Similarly, Bhati. Swami says the same spark of knowledge which is within, now because it is trapped in this Rupa and Nama, it expresses itself as curiosity. You want to know something. You see an object, you want to know about it. You listen to about a new concept, you want to learn it, you want to understand it. So the same Chit aspect, now because it is trapped in this Rupa and Nama, it expresses itself as the desire to know, curiosity. And Priyam, Swami says, the same Ananda which is limitless now gets limited where you find some objects as having the ability to give you happiness. Some things are likable. You want to be likable to others, right? So the whole idea is this whole spiritual journey. This is not merely Rupa Nama of this life, right? When I say the conditioning of Rupa Nama, the many lifetimes of Rupa Nama conditioning is what becomes our vasanas and all of that, right? The whole idea of how we make decisions, how we have a specific character, how we have a specific nature, all of that comes from this Rupa Nama conditioning. And what we are trying to do is release this Satchit Ananda aspect from Rupa and Nama. So I would not be wrong if I say the lesser the conditioning by name and form, the more spiritual we become. And the day when we are absolutely not contained or conditioned by name and form, we become Sat Chit. So I was just telling you about this concept that Swami speaks about, Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Rupa and Nama. And the whole idea of what we refer to as spirituality is to release ourselves from this conditioning of name and form. Everything comes from there, right? The idea of selfishness, the idea of narrow-mindedness, the idea of weakness, the idea of I'm incapable of doing this or I'm greater than somebody else, ego, pride, everything comes from this. So still, what is the role of the avatar? What is the role of Swami in all of this? As Swami tells in a very beautiful padyam of his, E gunam muganinchi yetenchano nadu, dhruvakumadu pala vaikunthavasi. In that, towards the end, he says, Satchidananda Murti Puttaparthi Shat Chakravarti. Satchidananda Murti. Murti stands for name and form. Sat Chit Ananda stands for Asti, Bhati and Priyam. So literally, this pure Sat Chit Ananda adorns a name and form and comes before us to release us from name and form. The whole idea is that, the whole purpose, as I said, I'm not saying that this is it, but as I sense this is what it is. That he's here to release us from this conditioning that is name and form. What is the process then? How is he achieving this? Now, each one of us have some sort of a philosophy in life, right? Whoever it may be, somebody who wants to make a lot of money, somebody who wants to, lead a good life, somebody who wants to do a lot of service. Everyone has some sort of a philosophy in life as they see it as this is the best way to lead our life, right? When that is the case, what we are constantly doing is we are also evolving this philosophy. As they say, part of this idea of how life has to be led comes from our nature, which is Prakriti. Part of it comes from nurture, the way we are brought up, the kind of company that we keep, the kind of people we move around with, the kind of life that we lead. So when Swami comes in front of us, I think the first thing is, how much are we allowing him to be part of our philosophy? How much of him are we allowing into our conditioning? Just like as I said, everything that we do is based on this conditioning of name and form. How much now are we allowing Swami to be part of this conditioning? The first step that Swami allowed all of us to do is to look at him in the name of love, in the name of devotion. Ask this question of, how would Swami want this to be done? Or would Swami like it this way? That seems like a very simple thing, really, because as students, we always have done that. Swami gave us many opportunities to ask this question of what would Swami want us to do? How would Swami want us to lead our life? It seems like a very simple thing that we did very naturally, very in a very carefree manner. But this, I feel, is a very important step in this journey of spirituality. I recall a very beautiful episode narrated by one of our very senior teachers who's no more with us. I don't know if there are any senior students of Swami in this call. If they are, they will recall. I'm referring to Habu sir. Habu sir was one of the principals for many, many years in Swami schools. Before he became the principal in Swami school here, he was a lecturer in the Brindavan campus. And it was in his stint in the Brindavan campus that he set up the stores which our late and our fond Ruchi sir took care of. That stores was initially set up by Habu sir and a few boys in the hostel. So he was the first stores in charge. And much like how the stores functioned when we were students, it used to be like that, and probably a little more difficult to run the stores, because anything that you need, somebody had to go to Bangalore city, procure it and bring it back and set it up in the stores so that boys can buy it. So we're talking about the 70s, and those were the times of bell bottoms and flowery shirts with big collars. So there was this fashion that people were very fond of, these big handkerchiefs which were almost like a scarf, flashy colors, big prints and big flowers and all of that. So the boys were very fascinated about that. It was the latest trend. So some of them went up to Habu sir and said, "Sir, we want handkerchiefs." And they told him specifically that we are looking for these kind of handkerchiefs. These are the ones that we want. And he said, "All right, next time when I go to the city, I'll buy and come." So he did that. In the next lot of things, he got this huge bundle of these colorful handkerchiefs, right? It was all, whatever would be brought would be arranged in the racks there. And many, many times when Swami is coming out for darshan, Swami would just take a round. And if there's not much crowd or something, Swami would just very casually walk into the stores. And he would speak to the boys there, or he would just see what is there. He would speak to Habu sir. So that day he very casually walked into the stores. And the atmosphere was very casual. Swami was talking to all of them. And in a very matter-of-fact manner, Swami just leaned, putting his hands on that bundle of handkerchiefs. Very casually, you can, even as I'm saying it, I can kind of picture Swami striking a pose like that, with one hand on his hip and the other one stretched, leaning on this bundle of handkerchiefs. And Swami was talking to the boys who were there. And even as he was talking to them, with his hand on this bundle of colorful handkerchiefs, Swami just threw a glance at Habu sir in a very subtle manner, and the slightest of frowns that you can imagine on Swami's face was there for a very brief moment, right? Imagine that scene. He's just putting his hand on this bundle of handkerchiefs, leaning there and talking to the boys casually, and just one look at Habu sir and probably the wrinkle on Swami's forehead and just a gentle frown. Sir looked at Swami and looked at this expression, and immediately he was thinking, what is it that Swami is not okay with? And then he looked at Swami and he looked at Swami's hand on this bundle, and immediately it struck him, or he thought that maybe Swami is not happy with this, this latest fashion colorful handkerchief which is there. So very promptly, what did he do? The next time he went to the city market, he took this bundle with him, he returned it, and he got a bundle of white handkerchiefs. And he put it in the same place where this bundle was. A couple of days later, again Swami walks into the stores and very casually leans on this bundle of handkerchiefs, continues to talk to the boys like how he was talking. And the same scene repeats. Swami steals a glance with Habu sir, and the gentlest of smiles, acknowledging that I gave you an indication and you got it. Right? A very, very small thing. There are any number of such things that you and I can think of, that small modifications we made to our life in the hostel. Hopefully, we continue to do that even now, thinking that Swami likes it this way. Swami likes it this way, right? As someone was telling, there was a time when Swami was staying in the mandir, right, about the bhajan hall. So one day Swami came down and asked, who is that person who's switching off these lights in the bhajan hall? Right? Who is that person who's switching off these lights? So Swami, why Swami? I think this volunteer or this sevadal or something like that. Swami said, he's switching off the lights as though he's firing some bullets, right? There's a series of switches for the various lights in the bhajan hall, and this person must have gone with relish and pat. He was just switching it all off like that. And Swami is asking, who is that fellow? Why is he switching off the lights like that? Then they asked him, why Swami, what happened? Why should he make so much sound? Why should he make it so noisy? Can't things be done softly? Then immediately Chiranjeev Rao Garu, who was there, he came and said, Swami, the switches make a lot of noise. There is a new switch which has come in the market. They call it piano switches. They make lesser noise. And Swami looked at him and Swami said, why are you telling me? Get it done, right? Then I think overnight they changed all these switches to these switches which make a little lesser noise. But just that idea, right? Swami likes silence. Even now, sometimes when I'm switching off a switch, it occurs to me that maybe we can do it a little softer. Swami liked it that way, right? Or in the habits of eating, in the habits of speaking to each other. Simple things, somewhere it strikes us. Oh, Swami liked it this way. Can we do it? What are we essentially doing when we are doing such things? We are allowing Swami's likes and dislikes to govern our lives. This name and form conditioning is now weakening a wee bit, just a little bit, giving just about enough space for Swami to come into our lives and govern it, right? The way he would want to govern it. I think my network is better. Just give me a moment.
Yes. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sairam, can you see me? Is it?
Yeah.
No breaks, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for your patience. Right. So this is the thing that Swami has been doing silently in our lives without letting us know, and in a very casual manner. The probably a little more when Swami makes a foray into our mind is when he starts challenging our idea of what is right and wrong. Right? This is like I might do it this way, I might do it that way, and when there's a choice like that, I look at it and say, okay, Swami likes it this way, I might as well do it this way. But then there are times when our own idea of how a thing should be done is there, and Swami comes and challenges it and sees whether we are ready to let go of that idea. I'm not too sure if some of you have heard these anecdotes. Some of our teachers must have narrated it. This happened during one of our convocation dramas, a very small incident. We all know how convocation dramas happen. How sometimes Swami chooses some of the boys to act, and we all have our own opinions about that, right? We will say that, oh, Swami, he's not a good actor. Swami just wanted to, give him that opportunity of being in Swami's convocation drama. So there was this one boy whom Swami picked to act as Lord Shiva. By nature, this boy is very soft-spoken, a very sweet person. In our idea, Swami had picked the wrong person to play a character as powerful and majestic as Lord Shiva. But nevertheless, there is the grind of the practice, and somehow Swami ensures that by when the last day comes, everything is perfectly in place. The scene that was being enacted was that of Markandeya. Markandeya is there he goes and hugs this lingam and he's crying. Lord Yama comes and he throws the noose around Markandeya, which goes around the linga. Of course, I'm sure all of you know that story. So we are sitting in Purnachandra Auditorium and seeing this drama on the final day. Yama comes there in all his vigor and he throws his noose on the lingam, and there is a thunderclap and lightning and everything, and Lord Shiva appears there on the stage, and Lord Shiva looks at Yama and says, "Oh Yama, why did you throw the noose around my neck?" Right? In the most gentle of voices, in the most soft manner, Lord Shiva literally, pleads with Yama, "What did I do to you? Why did you throw the noose on my neck?" And we were all looking at this and said, "Oh my God, this guy has messed up the scene so badly. This is not how the Lord Shiva is supposed to come and thunder there." And he says, "I'm Kala Kala." That's the dialogue, right? I will be death to death itself. And Lord Yama himself shudders and shivers when Lord Shiva comes like that in his Rudra form. But here is this man, this boy, who's saying that, "Oh Lord Shiva, Yama, why did you throw the noose around my neck?" And we were so disappointed seeing that. Then we happened to meet some of our classmates and seniors who were part of the drama, and we were talking about this scene, and we said, how badly this scene turned out. Then we got to know the background story of that scene. When Swami came for the practice session, Swami was sitting there, and this boy comes and enacts the scene, and the scene was enacted the way we thought it should be enacted. Shiva coming and being so upset. But when that scene was enacted that way, Swami looked at it and Swami said, "Hey, why are you getting so angry? Why are you shouting so much?" And the teacher in charges and the senior students said, "Swami, isn't that how the scene is supposed to be?" And Swami said, No, Lord Shiva is never like that. Lord Shiva, Shanta Swarupudu, Swami said. He's a very quiet person. He never gets angry like this. How do you challenge Swami? How do you tell him, "No, Swami, this is how the scene should be enacted"? And going against all their own sensibilities and ideas of how that scene had to be enacted, they ended up doing it the way Swami wanted it. There are many such small episodes like this where Swami would come and challenge our idea of right and wrong, good and bad, how certain things have to be done. And whenever we relent, whenever we allow Swami's word to be supreme, there are any number of times when we have not been able to do that, when we think that we know better. And there is this great devotee of Swami, his name you must have heard, Kutumbarao Garu, who used to be a caretaker of the ashram. Apparently there was one time when they were arranging for Narayan Seva. So he had arranged it in such a manner that the elderly people, the most elderly, some people who were having crutches, he put them all near the exit of that particular place where Narayan Seva was happening, so that it will be easier for them to come in and go out. So he had made all the arrangements. Swami was to come and see before the distribution was supposed to start or something like that. Swami looked at him and Swami said, "Hey, why are you making them sit like this? Let the old people's block come to this corner," which means right to the end of the whole arrangement. At the moment Swami said that, he said, "Yes, Swami, I will rearrange them." And then Swami went away. There was another devotee who was standing there, and he didn't know that what was the idea behind the arrangement that Kutumbarao Garu had done. But he felt that why Swami is telling like this. So he came and told Kutumbarao Garu, said, "Why is Swami asking you to make this change? Wouldn't it be better if Swami is sitting there? I mean, wouldn't it be better if the old devotees are sitting near the entrance? It would be easier for them to go out." Kutumbarao Garu looked at this man and said, "That much sense even I have." He said, "That much logic even I have. But when Swami comes and says something, at that moment, if you follow it, it is the command that you have followed." Now, this same reasoning that you did with me, saying that it is better if these old people sit near the entrance, if I had done it with Swami, Swami's response would have been, "Oh, you want to do it that way? Manchidi, nee ishtam. And Swami would have gone away. Many times we also do that mistake. We continue to do that mistake. We think we know better than Swami. We think we know better than what Swami expects of us, right? But every time when the whole world tells us that this is how something has to be done, when the whole world tells us that this is how life has to be led, this is how you have to dress up, this is how you have to groom yourself. But then we resist that temptation from within and without. And we say, but Swami liked it this way. Without our knowledge, we are loosening that conditioning of Rupa and Nama. We are going that one bit closer to Sat Chit Ananda. I'll tell you a very beautiful episode that was narrated by a senior. And at the end of it, of course, I'll tell you why I'm narrating this episode. It was a time when the MBA course was starting in our college. So this senior of ours, he had completed his course. I think he had done his BCom or MCom or something like that. He had completed his course. I think Swami had also given him a job in the trust. One day Swami comes to him and Swami says, hey, I'm starting this MBA course. Why don't you join for that program? This boy looked at Swami and said, Swami, whatever I have done itself, I've done with so much difficulty. I have no interest in academics. So please don't ask me to go back to college. Swami said, no, it's a very good course. It's a very, for those of you who don't know, when MBA started, Swami gave it so much attention that you can't imagine, right? So Swami said, no, MBA pedda course adi, chala baguntundi, you have to do that and this and that. And this person said, Swami, please Swami, I've had enough of education. Please don't ask me to go back to academics and write exams and all of that. Swami said, nothing doing, apply chai. Go and apply for this. So this brother of ours, he said, okay, Swami said, apply chai. Swami didn't say, go and write the exam. So he thought, I will apply for MBA and I'll just sit quietly. I will not go for the exam. So the plan seemed to be a fine one. He goes and applies for the exam. I think this next part of the episode pans out in Vrindavan or in Prashantinilayam. I'm not too sure. But wherever it is, I think the entrance exams are happening in Prashantinilayam and I think Swami is in Vrindavan. This boy is also in Vrindavan. So Swami comes up to him the day before the exam and Swami says, hey, what are you doing here? Isn't the MBA exam there? What are you still sitting here? So then he sheepishly tells Swami, Meeru apply chemanaru. I applied. You asked me to apply, I applied, but you didn't tell me to write. Swami said, you fool. If I say apply, it also means you have to write. And Swami said, all these stupid things you don't do, you better start right now. Go and write the exam. So he said, all right, you can't escape. So he goes to write this exam and he finds all of his juniors and some of his friends. They've been pouring into books for the past 1 month. And here he is on the eve of the exam. Absolutely no preparation and not a studious person at all. So he says, I had nothing. I just had to go and appear for the exam. So he goes for the exam. Then he goes for the interview. And in the interview, it all turns out to be very bad. He's given a mouthful by the interview panel for having done so badly in the exam. So he thinks, okay, now the ordeal is over. Swami told apply, I applied. Swami told write, I wrote. Now certainly I'm not going to get a seat in the course. So he comes back and that day Swami calls him. And Swami, had an expression that was filled with curiosity and irritation probably. Right? I mean, I'm just musing it from what the way this elder brother narrated it to me. So Swami had a very curious and he wanted to ask him something. So Swami calls him inside the interview room and Swami says, hey, yem rasavnu, what did you write? He said, Swami, I told you, Swami, I have not prepared for the exam. I'm not an academic. I couldn't. Swami said, no, don't tell me all that. What did you write? I want to know, what did you write? So he said, Swami, why? What happened? Swami said, they've given you -5. I want to know, what did you write that they had to give you -5, right? That's why I said Swami had that. Swami was so curious and irritated to know that bloody, I mean, what did you write that the examiners wanted to give you negative marks, right? So Swami said, you tell me, what did you write? They give you -5. So this boy said, Swami, I'm really sorry, Swami. I didn't prepare for the exam and I will not. Swami said, okay, go. Don't show me your face. Go. Swami said, and he sent him off. A couple of days later, the exam results come. And as a formality, he goes and sees the list. And when he sees the list, the first name is his. So he knows that it is Swami's grace that Swami has given him. And he goes and sits in Swami. Then that day, Swami comes and calls him. And Swami tells him, with an expression of such sadness, and you feel sorry for Swami. Swami tells him, I started MBA course. Such a good course. First year, very first seat, I had to release the chancellor's quota. Swami tells him, the very first course, the very first year of this course, the very first seat, I had to release my chancellor's quota and give you that seat. And Swami shook his head and Swami said, oh, do something, study, and sends him off. And this course starts, and as I said, this boy is not interested in academics at all. So you can imagine the first CIE or the first mid-semesters, whatever it was then, I don't know. The results come, and again Swami sends word for this boy. And Swami's in the interview room. Swami's got the results in his hand. And this time when he goes, he doesn't see irritation in Swami's face. He doesn't see anger in Swami's face. But he sees sorrow. Swami is looking so sad. Swami is looking so dejected. Right? Swami is sitting there. And then Swami asks him, how have you done your exam? So again, he said, Swami, you know me, I'm not good at studies, and I didn't do so well. Then I know Swami, with a lot of pain, Swami looked at him and said, what face will I show these officials, the Vice Chancellor and the Registrar and the Controller? Swami said, see, you're my candidate. I gave you seat. With what face will I go and speak to them now? And when Swami said it, Swami said it with such genuine pain that this fellow felt so guilty. For once, he was feeling so guilty that he has put Swami in that predicament. He said, Swami, I'm really sorry, Swami. And Swami said, no, I'm really hurt. I'm so pained, Swami said. And this boy was sitting there and he didn't know what to do. He was feeling so guilty that he had put Swami through that pain. And then Swami looked at him and Swami put out his hand like that. And Swami said, I want something, will you give me? I want something, will you give me? And when Swami asked like that, he said, Swami, why do you ask like that? You command. You tell me, do this, I will do it. Why do you ask like this, Swami? Swami said, no. I'm pleading you, I'm asking you. I want something, will you give me? Will you give me a word that you'll give me? He said, he didn't say it, but in his mind he was thinking, Swami, this life is for you. This entire life is for you. Why do you have to ask, will you give me something? Then Swami told, Nenu eppudu cheptu untanu, I always keep telling that I don't want remarks. I don't want marks. I just want that you should not get any bad remarks. Right? That's a statement that Swami would often tell us when we were students. Naku marks oddu, remarks rakunda chuskondi, Swami would say. Right? I don't want any marks, meaning that I don't mind if you get low marks, but you should not get a bad name. So Swami told him, I always say that I don't want marks. Swami put out his hand and Swami said, today I am telling I want marks. I am asking you, I want marks. Will you give me marks? Will you give me marks? The way Swami asked him, he felt so guilty, he felt so bad, and he he held Swami's hand and he said, Swami, I will give you marks. Swami, I'll give you marks. I'll do whatever it takes to give you. And needless to say, he went back, he studied really hard, and I think he got O grades in all his papers and all of that, right? That was probably the best he had ever done. And that day when the results came, Swami burst out of the interview room, and Swami told everybody sitting there, my boy, he's got the first rank, he's got the first rank, he's got the first rank. Actually, he didn't get the first rank. He just got O grades, right? If you really look at this whole episode, that boy as a student, his duty was to study, get those marks, and do well in his exam. What Swami was asking from him was not something out of the world. It was not something transcendental or spiritual. Swami was only asking him to do what he was supposed to do as a student. And Swami was saying, if you do this, I will be pleased. And what he should have done as a duty, for that boy, it became an offering to Swami. And that made him do his own duty better. And in the process, he also pleased Swami. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in one of the shlokas, very beautiful shloka, he says, Yat karoshi, whatever you do, Yat ashnasi, whatever you eat, Yat juhoshi, whatever you offer in worship, whatever form of worship you perform, Dadami yat, whatever you give in charity, whatever you give away, Yat tapasyasi, whatever you perform as your spiritual activity, your austerity. O Arjuna, tat kurushva madarpanam. That itself you make it as an offering to me. That itself you make it as an offering to me. So going back to that episode of that student was not doing anything out of the ordinary. He was doing what he was meant to do, but Swami had transformed that into an act of offering. He was not studying hard because he was a student. He was not studying hard because he wanted to make his parents proud. He was studying hard because he could not take seeing Swami being so pained. This journey of we releasing ourselves from name and form, this is a very, very important step in that, where as long as we are in this name and form, as long as we belong to this body, we belong to this world, we will have a form. But when Swami comes into the picture and says that whatever you're doing, you do it for me, we are literally breaking free from all of these name form related duties, and everything gets sublimated into an offering to Swami. There is much can be spoken about it. I'm not really going into that. There is this very beautiful episode. Again, I think, if I'm not wrong, I must have heard it from my father, who was telling that there was this lady who was interviewing M.S. Subbulakshmi. Most of you are aware of her, I'm sure. This great Carnatic singer, Subbulakshmi Amma. So there was this lady who was interviewing her for some news channel or something like that. And at the end of the interview, she asked M.S. Amma, Amma, what do you think about working women? A lot of women are taking up roles and responsibilities in the professions, in professional life. So what is your opinion about working women, right? So M.S. Subbulakshmi, she went on to say, no, in my opinion, see, the role the woman has to play is in the house. She has to take care of the house. She has to take care of the children, right? Very traditional views coming from a very conservative background. She said, no, this is the first rule. This is the first duty for any lady. And this interviewer was surprised. She looked at MS Amma and said, Amma, it's so surprising that it's coming from you, because you are a professional yourself. You're probably one of the most renowned professional in your field of music. Then MS Subbalakshmi said something which was very beautiful. She said, do you know, till today, I don't know how much I am being paid for a concert. I have no idea how much I am paid for a concert. She said, my husband comes and tells me, they are calling you to sing there, go and sing. I go and sing. I have no idea what I am being paid, what I am doing. I'm not endorsing that view. I'm not saying that women should live like that. But look at her approach. For the world, she was a successful professional. For the world, she was this world-renowned artist. But from her point of view, she was doing nothing but following her pativrata dharma. She was saying, my husband tells me, I follow. Swami says that this relationship between us and God should be like this pativrata dharma. In many discourses, Swami makes this point. For the world, we might be, oh, I'm a vice president, oh, you're a CEO, you're a mother, you're a husband, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're a doctor, you're a teacher. But from our point of view, we are only following our pativrata dharma towards Swami. Whatever people might look at us and say, oh, you're such a great person, or you're such a great doctor. You say, no, I am only pleasing my Swami. Whatever I'm doing, I'm only pleasing my Swami. You know, when I was talking about that student of the MBA class, Swami told him, I released my chancellor's quota. Come to think of it, in our university, there is no other quota. There is no management quota. There is no caste quota. There's no other quota. Every quota is only chancellor's quota. You got a chancellor's quota. I got a chancellor's quota. We all have been chosen by Swami. We've been handpicked by Swami, right? Any role that we perform in our life today, the role that I am performing, the role that each one of you are performing in your professions, in your personal life, we are doing something under his quota. We have been appointed as somebody's brother, we have been appointed as somebody's son, we have been appointed as somebody's mother, as somebody's wife, we've been appointed as somebody's manager, somebody's CEO, but we report only to him. The greatest gift that Swami has given each one of us as Swami's students, greatest gift. How much ever I think of it, I'm not able to think of anything better. The greatest boon that Swami gave each student, each Sai student, is he looked at all of us and he said, you are my property. He said, you all belong to me. You are all mine. Swami said, you're all mine. Once when Swami was very upset with students and he was talking something, he was giving them a few harsh words and disciplining them. And in the middle of that, Swami suddenly said, you know why I am shouting at you? You know why I am being so rude with you? Swami said, Naku hakku undi. Swami said, Mi paina naku hakku undi. He said, I have right over you because you belong to me. That is the greatest gift that Swami has given each one of us. If we are able to live by that label that Swami has put on each one of us, I belong to Swami, I belong to Swami. Whatever I do, whatever I'm trying to achieve in life, whatever role I'm dispensing, I am only trying to please my Swami. I don't want to see my Swami pained. I don't want to see my Swami disappointed. As Swami said, you know what face will I go and show my authorities? What face will I go and show them? In the same way, it should pain us. I mean, if we do something wrong, we belong to Swami. I am no more some Prem. I am no more that. I no more belong to my family. I am no more an individual. I belong to Swami. So what I do, every achievement of mine belongs to him. Every mistake of mine. And this one thing is enough. right? As Krishna tells, finally, the final command that he gives Arjuna is one of the final commands he gives Arjuna is that Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. What is that Sarva Dharman Parityajya? You have a dharma of a husband, you have a dharma of a son, you have a dharma of a mother, wife, everything. Give up all of those dharmas. How do you give up? I am nothing but a representative of Swami in that role. Whatever I do, the only thing I'm trying to do is please Swami. Right? This is the journey that Swami is putting us all through, and it doesn't really matter what we do. What is it that professionally we do? I probably will conclude with a short story that Sanjay Sani sir had once narrated to us in the, I think in Thrai Vrindavan, when he was talking, he had narrated this story, very beautiful story. He said, there is this man who works in a circus. So what he was really good at was doing juggling. So one day he takes all of these juggling equipments, the various jars and balls and all of that, and he goes to a temple. He stands in front of the deity and he starts doing juggling. He's juggling, and he's doing it for hours together. The story goes, the Lord appears in front of him, not because of anything else, but he's pretty curious. He says, the Lord appears before him and says, stop, what are you trying to do? And then the Lord says, don't you know that only true devotion moves me? These kind of stunts don't move me. Only pure hearts and pure devotion moves me. Then this devotee who is juggling, he said, Lord, I can offer to you only what I know. I can offer to you only what I am good at. All that I know is only this stunt devotion. I stand before you offering to you my stunt devotion, hoping that you will give me in return that true devotion. Whatever we are doing in our everyday life is nothing but standing in front of Swami and juggling, probably offering him our stunt devotion. And it is enough. If you really ask me, it is enough. One of our teachers asked Swami this very beautiful question. I think when Swami had appointed him as a teacher, he asked Swami this question. He said, Swami, what should I do to sanctify my life? Now that Swami has given me this opportunity to stay here with you and serve you, what should I do? What else should I do in my life to sanctify my life? Swami looked at him and, literally like looking through him and looking at him. Swami looked at him and Swami said, you don't have the devotion of Hanuman. You don't have the focus of Radha. So what will you do? And then Swami said, you don't have to do anything. Get up in the morning, go teach the students. Whatever you're doing, do it sincerely. Prepare well. Whatever you're doing, do it with all your heart. Take care of the children. At the end of the day, when you go to sleep, say, Swami, I offer all of this to you. Swami said, that is enough. That is more than enough. We may not have the devotion of Hanuman. We may not have the love and focus of Radha. But we have the same Rama and Krishna. That doesn't change, right? I might not be Radha, I might not be Hanuman, but my Swami is that Krishna and Rama, and I can lead my life as an offering to him, can I not? And that is all he seeks, right? The only purpose for him coming into our life is to completely take over our life and free us from this, as I said, any number of lifetimes of name and form we have taken again and again and again and again. To be completely freed from this is the blessing that he has come to give. And if we are conscious of it, if we are just aware that this is the process that he's putting us through, probably we can enjoy this process. We can expedite the process a little bit. For who doesn't love to be back in his presence sooner than later? So, with these few words, I offer my humble effort at Swami's lotus feet. It's not late for me. If it is not late for any of you, and if you want to ask something, I'm more than happy.
In fact, yes, time just flies by when we talk about Swami and his glory. And thank you so much for reiterating and emphasizing the property aspect that Swami has enforced on us. Indeed, we would really, try to live up to that wherever we are, however we are, whatever we are. Thank you so much, sir, for this beautiful session. In fact, a unique session, I would say. But before which, we have a couple of few questions. I know the time is running short, but still, it just makes me to, there are a lot of questions out of which I have to pick some good ones.
Sure.
So, since this is the teacher's talk, we want to know who has been the most inspirational teacher apart from Bhagawan. It could be any time in your life.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. When there are many teachers who have made a mark in our life. I still recall when I was in 8th standard. This was not in Swami's school or college. I had a teacher in the school where I was studying. She used to teach us geography and she used to teach us English, and she used to also be a moral science teacher. There are many small things that she said which made a very deep impact in my mind. And much later, when I came to Swami, I probably could understand Swami a little bit better because of what she had taught. And of course, much later, I came to know that she is a very ardent devotee of Swami. She's a Balvika's teacher. We didn't know it then. I mean, I didn't know Swami was not devoted to Swami then. But, that's the beauty. She was a regular teacher in a regular school, but she was able to, in some way, put Swami's values into us. I very fondly remember I've never had the opportunity to meet her again. And of course, after that, every single teacher of Vrindavan, I really cannot tell you, right from Rocha sir, and Jain sir, who probably did not teach us, Subramaniam sir, who didn't teach us, and the teachers who taught me, the chemistry teachers, the bioscience teachers. It always filled me with awe. If I'm here today, they're probably one of the main reasons for that. Because when I looked at them, I'll probably narrate one small episode connecting that 8th standard teacher and one of the teachers in Vrindavan. When we were in 8th standard, this teacher was once taking a moral class, and she was talking about this statement, Anityam Asukham Lokam, right, in Bhagavad Gita. So when she was talking about that, how do you explain that to 8th standard children? That this world is full of misery and nothing is permanent. She put this in a very beautiful way. She said, life is such that life is so filled with boredom that when you lead life, at the end of life, if someone comes to you and says, are you willing to live your whole life again right from the beginning the same way it was? She said, you will never want to do it that way, because invariably you will feel that, no, this could have been better, that should have been this way, or maybe I should have learned this, or maybe I should have gone into this field. And, even as she was saying that, it made a lot of sense to me. And I said, yeah, that's true. Because even in 8th standard, if you tell me to go back start from my 1st standard, I would want a bunch of things to be changed. So it made a lot of sense. And it kind of stuck in my head that this life is filled with boredom, that nobody would want to lead this life again. One day I was sitting in, many years later, in Vrindavan in one of the classes, and Ravikma sir was taking some chemistry class, and those of us, all of us, I'm sure this is common in all the campuses, every now and then we would manage to tell our teachers to break away from the subject and tell us something about Swami. And that's when at the end of the class, they're also teary-eyed and we're also teary-eyed, and so it leaves us with a fresh energy and inspiration. So it was one such day when we had convinced sir to tell us some stories and not chemistry, and he recollected some episodes from his life and all of that. And at the end of it, for no reason, very randomly, he made this statement. He said, "You know what? If Swami comes to me today and asks me, what do you want? I will tell him, Swami, I want to lead my entire life all over again without changing a single day." And when he said that, it struck me that this is exactly what it is. This is exactly what life is. You should, at the end of life, if you feel that this life is worth leading all the way again without changing any bit of it, which means at the end of life you're able to look back and see purpose in everything that has happened, right? And it struck me, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? So every single teacher in Vrindavan, many of the teachers in Parthi, I still am at awe at the amount of focus they can have on Swami, the enormous amount of love which makes giving up everything else so easy, right? And I can say this for the teachers of all the campuses. When you have so much love for Swami, giving up everything else becomes so very simple, right? I always remember this bhajan that we all sing. The line goes, right? Mohanakara manamoha vinasha. God is mohanakara. He attracts you, and he attracts you so much that all the other mohas of the mind just fall away. Mohanakara manamoha vinasha. And I look at all of these teachers as people who are so attached to Swami that detachment becomes second nature to them, right? And thank you for asking that question. I really admire each one of them.
Indeed, yes, sir. Vrindavan is a place that I today feel that any person has to go through the phase. I mean, any person should go through the Sai institution phase. And the next question would be, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of questions, but this is one question I really picked up because it's very relevant to you.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 3 books that you would like to suggest to us? Could be Sai literature, could be anything, because we know that you're very well read. So just asking you this question for that.
Yeah, thank you for asking for that question. I can clear that misconception. I'm not well read. I'm not even the most well read person in my household, right? So I am not a person who actually reads a lot. Probably the most cliched answer that I can give, and even though it is cliched, it is the most truthful answer that I can give, is we all have to go and read Swami's own writing, Swami's own literature. Whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, whatever little, right? The easiest literature of Swami to read is probably the Bhagavad Vaini and Ramkatha Rasvaini. But the more you read it, it's like, it's like a fruit with endless essence. The more you draw essence out of it, more keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. And I think everything that Swami expects out of us, Swami has given it in all these books. And Swami writes in, I think, the Gita Vahini, the first chapter of Gita Vahini, of course, Swami writes about Gita, about the Bhagavad Gita. And at that time, Swami says, the most important quality required for reading the Bhagavad Gita is you should have faith in the Bhagavad Gita. So if you and I don't read Swami's Vahinis, who will? The amount of faith and love that we have for Swami, we will have to direct it towards Swami's literature. And if you're asking me outside Sai literature, even I would say there are some things that we've been introduced to in our hostel in our college. The writings of Rabindranath Tagore, the writings of people like Khalil Gibran. Many times when I read some of these works, it fills me with two wonders. One is, how on earth did they think like this? And the other thing is, if not for Swami in my life, I would have made no sense of these words. These make some meaning to me because there is Swami in our life, right? So when we read some of these, for that matter, even any of the saints of our own country, Tukaram, Tyagaraja, how really fortunate we all are that we can read the words of someone like Tyagaraja, the words of someone like Meera, and be able to relate to that, right? And Tyagaraja says, will you not come? Will you not come and protect me? When Meera says, will I not have your darshan? How much we are able to relate to that, right? So I don't know, next birth, will we remember all of these experiences? Now when we have it, probably make the best of it. Swami has shown us to him and shown himself to us. Swami has entered our life. All of these works of these great saints will make so much more meaning to us than ever before, right? So I know it's a long winding answer, but yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And probably the last question for this session is, what is Swami to you in a word or a phrase? Bhagawan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, what is he to you?
Swami is Swami. I have answered this in so many ways. I've said Swami is my mother. I've said Swami is my best friend. But then he's nothing. I mean, he's that and everything above, isn't it? So he is Swami. There is no other person in life whom I can point out to and say, Swami is that to me. Swami is Swami to me. That's all. And if I really look at it, really with all the philosophical reasoning, if I look at it, he is my true self, right? He is our true self. That is why we feel so dear to him. In the Kenopanishad, there is a very beautiful line, a very profound statement. It says, if you say you know him, you don't know him. If you say you don't know him, then you are lying. Because who can say that? I mean, none of us can claim that we know him. Can we claim that we don't know him? Can I tell you that you don't know yourself? Can I tell someone I don't know myself? But we don't know ourselves also, right? So that's why the Upanishad says, if you say you know him, you are lying. If you say you don't know him, you're still lying. If you say that I think I know him, but I don't know him, probably you're close to the truth, right? So that's Swami to us. I don't think Swami is comparable to any other relationship that we have. Though the hues of all these relationships, we are able to see it in Swami. But Swami to us is Swami, and there is nobody else anywhere near in comparison to that.
Thank you so much for such profound and unique way of explaining. And yes, we've come to the conclusion of the session. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and being with us for the past 90 minutes, sharing those amazing thoughts with us. We would now end with a night prayer, before which we'd like to maintain 1 minute silence so that this phase of whatever we are going through gets through fast and we brave ourselves out of it as soon as possible. We'll conclude with night prayer. करचरण कृतं वा कायजं कर्मजं वा श्रवणनयनजं वा मानसं वा परादम् विहितम् अविहितं वा सर्वमेतत्क्षमस्व। जय जय करुणानिधे श्री साई देव शंभो। श्री साई देव शंभो। श्री साई देव शंभो। असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमया। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की।